Yeah. Hey guys. Well, this is awkward. I don't know where Dapper Dino is. We'll wait for him a little bit, but I don't know. Let's chat in the comments right now. I wasn't ready for this thing, but we can do something else. I don't know. Maybe you have any questions about any of my projects or tutorials. Whoops. This is a nice stream. Hey, Fire Games. I just started listening to your what was it called? The Unity podcast you've done. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Unity and Blender, it's just. I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself. I need to turn off monitoring. Just wait a second. Okay. Yeah, now it's much better. Yeah. Like you said, Unity and Blender is like a match made in heaven. They work so great together, and yeah. Hey Danny, nice to see you here too. What's next for Bumber Boy? Well, I need to decide what to do with that game, because it all started just as this like puzzle platformer, like a portal with explosions, but then I got really carried away with doing all those spin-offs with team trees and the toilet paper stuff, and now I just want to think about maybe I can do it not in the serious direction and make a puzzle platformer like Portal with explosions, but make it just do it like an absurd, bizarre, ridiculous bumping game like I set it out to be, Yo, Max. So I don't know what will happen with the stream because Dapper Dino is nowhere to be seen. Let me just, you know what? I'll try launching Unity, and maybe I'll show something of what I'm working on right now, and we'll do a short stream of that. So guys, where are you all from? Like, I don't know, type in your place, city, and what time is it? Hey Roman, things in Latvia is, I guess, the same as all across Europe. We're having quarantine. We can't go out in the streets in groups more of two people. But for me, it's like I don't know. For us who are doing game dev from their home and are generally introverted, this is like how it's been all their life. Australia, wow! You're early in Philippines, great. Netherlands, damn. And Ireland, Voronezh. That's awesome, guys. And even from Portugal. That's so cool to see you all, guys. Are you guys following me for a long time, or is it just like because of the latest videos or something? Like, how did you find about my channel at all? But it's so surreal to see so many people here. Oh damn, Fi, yes, that event was so amazing, and like it's a shame they didn't have more games, more game booth there, but your game was like the highlight of the ones that were shown there, you know. So it was amazing to meet you and your colleagues. Pale Rider, wow, no joke. I'm sorry, how old are you? Like, oh, that's cool to see people from way back. Yeah, from like 1 year ago videos. Pale Rider, damn. Yeah, you're like in the lowest end of the risk group, but still, damn. So for some reason I can't start my unit. Oh yeah, there it is. Let me just... Okay, so while we're waiting for Dapper Dino, here's the project I'm currently working on. Just a random scene. Let me just get it here nicely. And we'll check if it runs. So yes, I don't know where's Dapper Dino, but if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. Okay, here we go. I don't know if the footage is choppy, please tell me, guys. And if you're hearing any sounds at all. So after this quick demonstration, I just want to make sure the footage from the game is smooth and the sounds are there. Thanks, Tulen. In fact, I'm gonna make my next tutorial about the lighting and a little bit about how to trick Unity, and it's a tip about Unity how to make your scene look much nicer, you know. Serious? Nah, I haven't published anything at all. So I'm working right now. Okay, let's say that like about 2 years ago, I started working on my first major title. That was that goal game you may seen. My first videos on this channel are about that. But I kept working and working and working on that game, and because I didn't have any concrete deadline set, the game just went out of the scope of the game just blew up so much I couldn't handle it anymore, and so I was searching for a way out, you know. I wanted to minimize the scope, but then I went to Unite, met some awesome people, met Andrei from Mix and Jam, and soon after that he made the Mix and Jam Game Jam, and I decided to participate in that, and from out of that jam came the Bomberman game, and for me it was really great experience because I switched to another game for a little bit, and for my golf game it made much more sense. Like, I needed that break to take a look at that game from a side, you know. But then I kept working on Bomberman game, and I decided I will release this game first. I will keep the scope much smaller, and then I will return to the golf game and finish that. So hey guys, if you're let me just start this just for a little bit. So yeah guys, if you're new to game dev or you don't know where to start, yeah, I guess it's working. Like, I'm a living proof of the guy who doesn't know shit about anything, you know. My background is in graphical design, so when I first started programming, for me, it was like for most of people, like, programming is this big thing that is like super hard and like your brain is not made for it, but it really is not that hard, because yeah, programming can go so deep. You can spend your whole life learning programs, but like, just for my first 2 or maybe 3 years, all my programming was like 99% just if-else statements. So I didn't use any delegates or generics until just like recently, maybe like half a year ago. So if you don't know where to start with game development, just download Unity. They have a really great onboarding program. Just start out with one of their tutorials. They have this Learn tab when you start Unity, and just go from there. Hey guys who just joined. Hey, for tutorial series for tutorial series on multiplayer, you better check out Dapper Dino. He's doing he's doing multiplayer series right now, but I think he's not using Photon but using Mirror. So yeah, go check Dapper Dino. I have a link to his channel in the description. Do you work somewhere other than game dev and YouTube? Right now I'm doing it primarily full-time, because my day job is pretty flexible with time, so I can do game dev right now almost full-time. Hey Roman, thanks for bringing on awesome questions. Do you need to learn code to create games with Unity? Nah, in fact, I have a guy in my Discord server who's made his FPS controller entirely by using Bolt scripting language, which is like you connect nodes. It's a visual scripting language. And he made an awesome controller. It supports like crouching, jumping, when you're running, your field of view changes. It's really amazing, and he's made all that without even typing one single line of code. Talon asks, "Oh, nice. Shaders is just that thing that's missing in my game for now." Yeah, shaders one thing, but if you want to get the look you're going for, lighting is like the most significant thing that can change everything. So, for example, I'll try showing in my scene here right now. If I'll disable everything that's like post-processing. So here, yeah, this is how it looks, like basically straight out of Unity. Like, I've made materials, I've made shaders, I've set up my lighting, but by default, if you don't do anything else at all, it looks, well, it looks stupid. But when you start adding things like, let me do it like one by one. So here I'm adding dynamic sky, and dynamic sky gives us just a little bit softer shadows. Then I'm adding fog, and fog just gives us a little bit of like aerial perspective. And then I'm working with shadows, just adding those micro shadows. Then I'm doing screen effects, which is like bloom, motion blur, and everything. And the biggest change of all is, of course, tone mapping. When I add that, the scene comes to life. No, yeah, nice to see you here. Yeah, thanks. Well, okay, let's blow some more toilet paper rolls, I don't know. Oh, wait, guys. Just wait a second. Yeah, I thought maybe Dinos was here, but nope. Okay, yeah, let's back to the game. So I don't know, guys, you're like, I see 28 people here seeing this. I don't know why you're here, but if you have something to say or ask, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So for this project here, I used Kaney's assets. You maybe know the guy goes by the Kaney.nl. He makes these amazing low poly assets. So in this scene, like almost 100% of everything is just that guy's assets. I only added rigid bodies and colliders to them. Oh, dude, yeah, that's a great question. Why the friends' apartments? Well, why not, you know? If you're gonna make something just for a joke, why not make something relatable, you know? Something people might remember. Funny thing, in the show they never show this wall because there are cameras and audience sitting there. So I had to come up with something on my own, like how could it look? Yeah, Dino's extinct. For the thumbnail for this video, right now I have like this Starfield image, but the joke beforehand, I tried doing like this meteor hitting Earth and then Dapper Dino's image there, but I don't know. I didn't leave it. Maybe I would like. I don't know. So yeah, right now footage may be a little bit janky because I'm recording all this and streaming. So yeah, I should also like maybe turn off motion blur. That'll help to smooth things out. Yeah. Are you using HDRP or UDRP? Yeah, I'm using HDRP here in this project. I started out doing URP, but I really missed that that fog. You know, you can't have volumetric fog and volumetric lights in URP, and I really wanted that. But everything else can be made in URP right now. They updated their post-processing stack, and it's amazing now. So if I'll decide to port this project or game to lower end devices or even Switch, I will have to go and port this project from HDRP to URP, and I believe everything besides volumetrics will stay the same, because URP and HDRP are so feature parity right now. If Monica knew that I must, yeah, Monica would be pissed. How? Hey, Fly Spirit. Nice to see you here too. How things? How long do you usually take to make things visually pleasing on a project? Well, it can take a lot of time, like literally days. When I was making the first toilet paper thingy test level, let me load it up. Yeah, this one. So for this one, I spent, well, quite some time, because to this point I was only just messing with the project, and I didn't have any particular look to it. But when I thought about making this small corner of a room, of a bathroom, I spent like, yeah, almost full day like trying to figure out what's the lighting like. I wanted like to make it soft. I wanted to have this volumetric shining on the toilet itself. I wanted everything else to have this eerie feeling, you know, like it's like a dreamy feeling. HDRP red rating though, yeah. I know that's kind of a vague question, but I usually overspend too much time making my projects look good. Hey, I do that too. I over-engineer like a lot of things, and the visuals are not the only thing that I spend too much time on. You know, I get that's perfection for you. Perfection is a bitch. Okay, I see Dapper Dino. Dapper Dino's calling me.
Hello?
Hey, yeah, hey guy.
I'm sorry.
Hey Nathan.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Guys, can you hear Nathan? Please comment.
Oh,
I can't see you though. Yeah,
yeah,
I already started. Like, yeah. Can you enable your camera for us?
Yep. We can't find your camera. It is plugged in. It is. Apparently not plugged in, it's dangling. The USB is...
Ah.
There we go. Okay. Now what happens if I turn it on? Okay, I need to actually shut my window so that on my curtains so that the light isn't glaring on my face.
Yeah.
Okay, this should be good. I'm just testing it in here first.
Slightly louder. Okay, how's that?
What? Oh,
So
me.
talk to me, Nathan. Yeah. What happened? Where were you?
Oh, I was just having problems with my thing. I mean, now that the internet's working, then now I had to update OBS. That's just it's so great. It's totally.
Yeah, the internet is shitty for me too lately. Like I'm now plugged. I have plugged my phone in.
Set mine. Yeah, I don't know if it's my internet or yours, but one of us is like lagging on Discord a little bit.
It might be my internet. I don't know, but I don't know. Let's ask guys on the stream. Cause yeah, my stream is also a bit lagging. I don't know why. Maybe because Discord's now taking a bunch of my internet connection. I don't know. Guys, please tell if the stream is lagging, like if our picture is I don't know, glitching. Well, I can see it kinda is okay.
All should be good now on my end. Live stream things, right? At least this is a live stream.
Yeah.
People don't expect anything to be.
I expect quality, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know
All
if
right.
you can? Oops, sorry. Nope. Yep.
Right, I'm just gonna hit go live. Oh, there's an error. Oh, great.
Yeah, right now YouTube's saying to me that it doesn't receive enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So I'll try lowering my bitrate. Oh yeah, it's glitching now. People are saying, yeah. I guess that's because, yeah, my internet is shit, and now because we are connecting, like I'm uploading my video to you, downloading your video, and then we have to like upload all that to YouTube. Let me just check if I can.
Yeah, my OBS isn't even letting me go live. Oh, this is so great, isn't it? Everything went smoothly last time, and then now, okay.
Yeah. First time. That's okay.
When I hit go live, it's telling me there was an error, or you can just go live. An error occurred. This is usually called data NVIDIA drivers. What? This didn't happen last time.
I switched your.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. I switched you back on. Let's try doing this. So
mine's
YouTube
honestly
saying
telling me. Why is mine breaking?
GameDev Vision.
I'm gonna restart
make sure your
OBS
Discord.
and hope.
Okay, do that. Make sure your Discord voice calls in the correct region. Okay, let me check that too.
Alright, if I go live now. Yeah, I'm getting problems saying my out-of-date video drivers, but it was fine last week on the stream. What if I go to... I'm now having to try update my graphics card drivers. Why?
Well, yeah, I'm on Mac and I had to do some fiddling here too, because like I told you, I couldn't get my system audio working, so you need third-party things for that. Because on Windows, I guess you can just add a source in the OBS, right? Just to have your system audio.
One sec. My NVIDIA GeForce is updating. I'm hoping this is the fix I need.
Yeah.
OBS.
Guys, keep those questions coming when we're all set up. We'll answer them together.
I mean, maybe at the end of the day, it'll just be you streaming. This is annoying, but
yeah, that's really fun first experience.
I'll just be.
Hopefully, Unity stream won't go like that.
Oh yeah. Well, luckily when I did their stream, I didn't have to like do any streaming on my end, so there's no like technical.
Yeah, only voice. Yeah.
Okay, I do have a driver update available, so hopefully, if I do this, it'll fix it. That is my hope. So I've had people messaging me like, "Where's the stream?" It's literally just not letting me start streaming.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe because I was having internet problems, it might be to do with that. But it's telling me it's a graphics card problem. So
yeah,
I'm gonna assume.
Have you updated things in the weeks?
No.
Any reason why you use macOS? Cheryl asks. I just started using Macs like 5 years ago after switching from Windows and kept doing it. Everything works fine there except there's one big thing that in Unity you can't see any GPU profiling on Macs. Somehow it just isn't available. So I will need to get a PC just for that, so that I can profile my games and projects on the GPU side, you know.
Yeah, when you said you're on Mac, I was like, really? I was like, you actually
you
use this Mac seriously?
Yeah, that's such a strange thing when we were but I also asked the same thing when we were in the Unity offices, because all their desktop machines are PCs. I haven't seen one Mac there. But then I asked like, don't you use Macs at all? And they said, no, we all have laptops. Our laptops are Macs, but we use desktop PC, so they use both. But yeah, I've seen from Blender did a study, and I guess Unity also on OS systems. So it's like 90% using Windows and only about 10% who uses macOS, and like 2% who is on Linux.
Yeah, I've just I'm not one of those people who goes out of their way to hate on Mac, but I don't know. I don't want to get involved like messing around with the problem, exclusivity problems with certain bits of software. I understand there's certain software people like that's only on Mac, like I don't know, GarageBand and stuff. But most of the stuff I use, or a lot of the things I've used, for example, even games. I've had friends I've played with that have used Macs, and we just can't play certain games together. Because they're not on Macs. I'm trying to talk and like download these drivers. This will be better when it's done. Okay. Preparing to install. I've downloaded them now. It's installing, and fingers crossed this fixes it, and I don't have to do a PC restart or anything.
Yeah. Which GPU card do you have?
GTX 950. I've had it for a few years. It's not a problem with the graphics card. It's probably, well, apparently just the drivers. I mean, we can start just talking about game dev stuff if your side's ready.
Yeah.
So keep your people happy while I get my stuff up.
Yeah, if you can do both things at a time, yeah, let's do that.
Well, if we can start, like, if my stream can be up by 12, at least we've fixed it within the hour. But yeah, that's a bit annoying. At least I haven't gone around announcing on social media saying we're starting now, and then people come and it's just not working. So obviously I put the schedule to start at 11, but I'm actually just going to say having problems with OBS should be sorted soon.
Cheryl says, because I'm too cheap, I installed Mac on Windows. Yeah, that's troublesome, but doable.
Yeah, maybe we should start talking about game dev stuff. I'd like let's just get the stream going. I'm sure people won't mind if I start a little bit later. If Nvidia would hurry up, this would be lovely. Just...
So should we start, right?
Yeah, let's start. Do I have anyone in my chat anyway? I have 2 people. Like, I mean, that's cool considering I'm not even streaming.
So yeah,
Maybe...
I'll let you do the
yeah,
introduction because like it was your idea, you know.
Oh, I'm not prepared for that because Charles did the intro last time.
Oh, okay.
Last time we just started by saying, you know, who we are, what our channels are, and then we spoke about the coronavirus. That's how we started everything off. Just some topic that everyone's interested in. Well, everyone's sick of hearing about it, but yeah. Well, that's the thing. Maybe we actually do want to wait before a proper intro until my side's set up. Perhaps we just jump into questions and then go back and do an intro once I've started, because then the people tuning in on my side can like hear about you rather than missing out on that part. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. Guys, write your questions in the comments and we'll try to answer them. And I'll just try to remember some of the questions you asked on previous videos or something. Or you can tell us what you're most interested in, I don't know, maybe shaders or coding, because Dapper Dino here is a much more experienced coder than me, so he'll answer a bunch of your questions.
And I want to know about shaders as well. But
have you ever used a shader graph?
Yeah, I've used it. I've actually got some really old videos from when it was like initially released. To the point where if you follow those videos now, there's probably like better ways of doing it or different ways.
Yeah.
I remember back then you couldn't customize variable names for shader properties, so you had to. It just gave you like this long string, like jumbled ID, and so if you wanted to use that, you'd have to remember it or go copy paste it or something. And then enough people complained saying, "Can't we just like use our own variable names?" It was a really long time ago. It was back when shader graph was first revealed. Yeah. I guess when I started with shader graph, oh, my PC's gone black.
He's went into restart or something. Let's just wait a little bit for him to call him back. So, Doug, are you guys partaking in Ludum Dare this week? That's a great question. I really want to partake in the Ludum Dare. I've never done any Ludum Dares, and in general, I've only done one game jam before this. But I would really like to partake in that one. We'll see what the theme will be, and if I'll have at least like one day to do something. If you guys have already taken part in any of the game jams, please comment. I'd like to hear what you've made, and will you be partaking in the Ludum Dare? Hello. Yep.
Yeah. When it finished with the installation, it had to restart. It just did. It just didn't even ask me, you know. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna check it. Yeah. So now I'm live. Okay. Let me jump over to the YouTube page.
Let me go to. So should we announce it?
For the people who have been waiting. Yeah, I'm checking out my YouTube page because it's asking me to press the go live there. Going live. You're live. Okay, let's put it on scene and do this. Alright, I should have us both set up. Yeah, I'm gonna go and announce it now.
Awesome, yeah. I'm doing the same.
Finally.
Yeah.
That wasn't bad. Sometimes when you have technical issues, you just have to like completely reschedule and cancel. At least we've got it working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just take your tweet and just change it to @you instead. Roman.
Okay, yeah, we're finally here. I've done everything I needed to do, and I'm ready to talk. Waiting for you.
Yeah. Yep, I'm just gonna grab a link to the live stream. Live now. Copy and put this on Twitter.
Oh, dude, you should stream Ludum Dare. Yeah, that's that's a great idea. For me to lose all my nerves.
Oh yeah, so yeah, have you ever streamed doing game jam stuff?
No, this is my first stream like ever
Oh,
of doing
that's
anything.
all. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, over
Yeah.
time I've streamed a few different things. I've streamed just like working on website stuff, just working on game stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you
I think
started your channel doing basically like a lot of things, like not only Unity, but like Blazor stuff and like, yeah, how do you like cope with like doing all that and like how do you pick the theme? Like right now, I guess you like more or less doing Unity, like solely, right?
yeah, yeah. So when I started the channel, it was just Unity at the start because I just got into Unity. It was the main thing I was programming in, was doing C# in Unity, and I was just showing off some things I made in my games, the kind of stuff you do on Twitter and whatever, you know, like, oh, here's some cool part of my game. But this was like when I just started learning, so my cool things were not very cool. But the point is, I
Yeah.
was happy about them, so I was showing them off on YouTube. And then some people were like, "Oh, hey, you should do tutorials," because at the time they were just like clips, no audio, just something in a game that looks kind of cool. And then I considered the person or the people that were, you know, asking to do tutorials, and then I'd started doing tutorials, and then it was Unity for the start, and then after a while, I wasn't bored of doing Unity, but I thought, hey, you know, let's try some other coding stuff at the same time. And one thing I'd recently learned around that time was about like making Discord bots, and I, you know, liked Discord. We had a Discord server. I
Oh
thought,
yeah,
hey,
that's a
people
popular
might like
topic. Yeah.
people might like Discord bot tutorials, so I did some of those, and they became really popular. But they kind of died out quite fast as well. Like the thing with Unity is there's so many things you can do content about. Like it's such a broad thing. Game just quite limited. You know, once someone knows how to run a Discord bot and like do some common things
Yeah.
like grab a user and send them a message, you can pretty much make everything. Like you can do anything. People come to me with really complex seeming questions about Discord bots, and it's usually just a case of like reusing the stuff they already know. Whereas with Unity, I still don't know most of the stuff there is to know. You know, there's so many things. You never run out
Yeah.
of content ideas.
How did you come into Unity? You were programming before that, right?
So let me think about the timeline here. Um, so it's 2020 now. So I finished high school in 2019. So probably around 2017 is when I started Unity. 2017, because that was when I started programming, and like immediately, well, at school it was Python, and
Yeah.
that was cool. That was nice. That like at least got me into it. And then I decided I wanted to make games. I already kind of knew that from the get go. Like, you know, it'd be cool if I could use this programming to make games.
Hey,
So I
I
looked up. Yeah, go
I
on.
believe anyone who's in their teens like thinking about that, you know.
Yeah. Because whenever I'm playing games, I'm always thinking about like, I wonder how they made that, or like, it'd be cool
Yeah,
if I could.
yeah.
Yeah. So then I was obviously doing a lot of googling about like, oh, what game engine should I use? Da da da. The first thing I actually messed around with was Game Maker Studio. You know Game Maker Studio, right? Yeah.
Yeah, of
I
course
messed around
people
with
are
that a
still
little bit.
making big games with that engine, yeah.
Yeah, like I guess I liked it, but I wasn't satisfied because I mainly wanted to do 3D stuff. And because it has its own scripting language, it's like then more difficult to use other things because nothing else uses. I think it's GD script or something like. I can't remember what it means. Like, what it's is it GD script? No, that's Godot. Sorry, that's
It's
a
a good
different
OP,
engine.
yeah.
Yeah, I've tried Godot as well a little bit, but I always come back to Unity. Let's put it that way. Like, because everything I want to do in other engines, I think like, well, I can do this in Unity, but better.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
so at least for the
exactly.
time being, I'm sticking with Unity. When making anything like serious. Um, yeah. So how did I come to Unity? Yeah, it was just Google. It was Google, and obviously you have the question of do I use Unreal? Do I use Unity? Well, I tried Unreal, and I had quite a few problems with like compile time and just like the engine
Yes.
being less lightweight. It does a lot more. I was glad at the time there were a lot more like cool features in it. Like their shader thing at the time was so much better because Unity didn't have one built in, and their like animation and just a lot of the stuff was there that was missing from Unity, but then over the last 2 years they've added packages
yeah,
for like
yeah.
everything you need. So, and that's because of packages as well. It is more lightweight because you just add and remove what you need. So yeah, Unity's going in the right direction.
Yeah. Since Unity started doing their naming scheme like yearly, they're like they pull the game up really. I've tried Unreal too, and for me it's just the same compiling time, and it was just spinning my fans so hard. Even like the empty scene, it was like. So yeah, Unreal, I haven't touched it for like maybe 3 years. When they first came onto the scene with Unreal 4, and even before they became completely free, I tried it then. And yeah, I haven't touched it still. But as for Unity, first time, I'm 34 right now, and the first time I remember I started Unity, I was 27, so it's like 7 years ago. But then I kinda haven't touched it for a couple of years, then I came back to it, then I haven't touched it for a couple of more years, and now like last 2 years I'm like almost daily doing Unity stuff. So that's like what's the route for me.
Yeah, like the thing with Unreal, I just found it harder to get started with, and like with Unity, I mean, with any game engine, when you load it up, you're just in an empty scene. Like, what do I do now? You know, I just found it a
Yeah.
lot easier in Unity to get going. When you are in Unity and you right click and you get the create menu for everything you can create, I understand there are a lot of things there that might be confusing, but I just like how you click it and it says something about, make a C# script, and then you write some code and it can do anything. In Unreal, unless you're actually writing your code for everything, because of blueprints, I understand
Yeah.
blueprints are kind of easier to use for prototyping, but there's blueprints for everything. So like there's different types of blueprints for the different things you're making. And I understand people who've used it like properly might not find it as confusing, but because I guess I didn't put enough time in, I got really confused. Like, what should I be doing? I think you have to like relearn like best design practices for Unreal, like how you do certain things. It's just I found it all weird. And with the visual scripting, I like coding. I don't want to be dragging and dropping like to code.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Yeah, I tried blueprints, but I couldn't get like too much into it because like when your project grows big, you can't like handle
Tangled
like
mess.
2,000
Yeah.
nodes. Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
people call it spaghetti code when it's actual code, but it's even more spaghetti code when it's literally all these lines crossing over each other and like all these nodes everywhere. Yeah, I just it wasn't for me. I know some people like it, and I see some really cool things made in Unreal. Obviously, it's like a serious AAA game engine. I feel like a lot of the companies that use it have like modified versions of the engine because it's open source, or they know things that I don't know about how to cut down compile time. Because every time I recompile the C# script, the C++ script, it took ages. Like Unity,
Yeah.
you save your changes now, and sometimes it's recompiled before you even tab back into Unity. I'm like expecting the little recompile logo, and it's just not there, and I'm wondering, did I not make any code changes? And I'm like, no, it's already compiled. Oh wow, like it's that
Yeah.
fast
Yeah.
sometimes. I'm just gonna quickly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Like when I see videos people making like why I left Unreal for Unity or something like that. Yeah, that's always comes like the top one, like compiling times.
Yeah, I'm just realizing I'm kind of off center on my webcam. I'm sure no one cares. It's just some little picky
Yeah,
detail I've
absolutely.
noticed. No one
So
cares. All right.
are you making anything right now? I mean, like your own projects besides doing YouTube. Like, do you have any of your like games or prototypes or something?
So yeah, in my own time, I've got kind of two things on the go. One thing is so I'm making a multiplayer game. Now that's already like more difficult to make,
That's
but
yeah.
but I'm trying to keep the reason. Okay, one of the main problems people have is scope, right? They pick a project that's too hard to do and they never finish it. I found
Yep, we
that
were just talking about that. Yep,
yeah.
exactly.
I find that actually making a multiplayer game, if you do it right, can actually make it smaller scope. Because let's imagine you're making a multiplayer game. Okay, so my problem is when you're making, let's say, a MMORPG, everyone wants to make an MMORPG, right? Like, it's just impossible on your own. It just is. The problem is not just the fact that there's all these complex systems, but it's also content. If you make an MMO and you build everything, and then you realize, wait, my players actually want like items and spells and all this content, and then you have to go make that. If you're making a multiplayer game and it's not an MMO, then I feel like you can limit yourself. So the game I was making, have you ever played Stick Fight the game, or you've seen that maybe?
Yeah.
I want to go for, it's not, so like think of that but 3D with magic instead of guns. So it's like short rounds, small maps, and you die, you're dead until the next round. Last player standing, yeah, that kind of thing. And it's just a case of you spawn in, you pick up like staffs and rings and other magical equipment, whatever, and then you cast cool spells, and then people die. So like, that is basically the scope, right? It's just all I need to get done is the combat, and then that's really the entire game. I don't have to worry about quest systems and inventory systems and da-da-da. Like, at the end of the day, it's just really simple. You pick something up, you attack with it, and you're done. So, even though it's multiplayer...
are you in that?
Well, I mean, you could argue the prototype's there in the sense that you can make a lobby, people can join your lobby, and then you can spawn in and hit people. The problem I was having with it is, so do you ever use additive scene loading in Unity, or do you just do normal scene manager.load? So I always just use normal load scene. I've heard benefits of additive stuff. I just have never used it. And I'm in the Discord server for Mirror, which is the multiplayer thing I use. And I've got some videos on it too. And in their server, one of the people who like develop it, because it's open source, was telling me, because he watches the channel, because I'm one of the few people who actually make content on it. So if he's working on it, he's like giving me pointers and saying, actually, this, da-da. So one thing he was talking about was additive scenes. How, multiplayer, there's a lot of things in like how it works. You've got to like make sure all the people in your like thing are synced in terms of scenes, if they're meant to be, and that like everything you spawn in is in the right place. There's always tricks for doing things. Like if you have a projectile, you don't have like every frame update the position on all the networks. When it's spawned, you just tell the other people to spawn it at the right place with the right velocity. And on the server, it's the real thing. On theirs, it's like a ghost version. It's like this projectile doesn't actually do anything apart from just look cool. Whereas on the server, it has the logic for collisions and dealing damage and stuff.
And when you start doing physics, that's when it gets interesting. Because I tried like maybe a year or 2 years ago, I wanted to try multiplayer, and at that time I don't know if Mirror was there because I haven't heard about Mirror until you told me. And so I was trying to use Photon Bolt, I guess. They bought, like, there is Photon networking, and they bought another like networking system. It was called Bolt, and now it's Photon Bolt. So I was playing, and it's an interesting project to make your physics like appear to work on both client sides, and you can do it like with one ball, for example. If you're talking like about that Rocket League, all they need is like that one ball being simulated and synchronized across all the clients. But when you have like a brick wall that's broken, that's another thing, and it was so hard to do. So I kind of stopped doing that, and like nope, I'm gonna do like single player from now, and then I'll return to multiplayer.
With physics in a lot of games, like imagine it's nothing important, like it's just a crate in the background, someone destroys it and it shatters. That's not going to be synced over the network because it's not worth it.
Exactly. But because I was making a golf game where like it is everything like about about physics.
Well, it's just like with movement anyway. So there's like about client authoritative and server authoritative. So like in a game, if the code for moving is on the server, the benefit is players can't cheat because they can't But the problem is then there's a delay from the person who's doing the moving, because if I press forwards, it tells the server, hey, I'm pressing forwards. The server's like, cool, I'll move you forwards. Then it gets back to you to actually move. There's always a delay. Whatever your like ping is your delay for movement, really. So what games do is you move on your screen, and then you tell the server that you want to move, and the server moves, and you send timestamps with all this. So what happens is the server then gets back to you afterwards, after it's moved you, and all it does is it checks, are you in the right
Mm,
place at the right time? If so, I'll let you just carry on what you're doing. So it's just to make it smooth for the player, because at the end of the day, 99% of your players won't be cheating, so there'll be no
yeah,
problem there.
yeah.
But you want to make sure people don't, because if people can do it, then you'll find more people will do it. Um, it's the same with the physics thing. I'd say, like, maybe I've never messed with like physics being the core thing of the game, right? Like Rocket League's ball or the golf ball. Maybe, yeah. If you do, you just have to sync positions. Like I don't know how to make it smooth. Maybe reach out to the people who made Rocket League. I've played it quite a bit.
Yeah,
I've seen
they
it.
have a
If you've
great
ever lagged,
talk on YouTube about how they made it. Yeah,
if you ever lag in the game, you notice how the ball is flying, then it kind of like stops and it just appears somewhere else. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how they do that because I doubt, like, okay, I don't know. Is Rocket League in Unity? I think it's a different engine, is it? I don't know honestly. But let's
I
imagine it's
can't
in Unity.
remember. Yeah, let's imagine.
I I don't know if
But
they use a rigid body. They probably have their own physics for the ball. Maybe
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah, yeah,
because it seems more complex than just a rigid body.
yeah,
So
yeah. I guess
we'll see.
they have something custom and built around that, the ball, everything else. Yeah,
Yeah, and it means that they can easily like sync across the network exactly what they want from their custom thing. Like with Mirror, it's as simple as you just add a sync var attribute to a variable, and whenever you change it on the server, it then gets updated on the clients. Um, and if you try and change it on a client, it just doesn't work. Rocket League's
oh,
made in Unreal. So that's
yes,
much better.
yeah, people are saying click. Yeah, yeah, made in
Okay,
Unreal. Okay,
that's the thing.
that's interesting. Yeah,
So like people said, and still do for right now, say that Unity multiplayer is very hard. You need to use some third party thing like Mirror or Photon. Um, when I was trying Unreal, I was curious as to see, is it any easier to make multiplayer on Unreal? But I just couldn't find any good tutorials about it. I know there were
mm,
like a few, but they seemed outdated or just weird. Or
yeah,
they also relied on third party assets. I couldn't find, like, I understand every game's different, so it's going to be hard to find a multiplayer solution that works for all games. But you'd expect there to be at least something built in that works. When we were at the Unity event, I spoke with one of the Unity devs saying, like, so what would you recommend we do for multiplayer right now? And he
yeah.
said, don't. Like, he just said don't. Like, or don't do
Unit.
multiplayer Unet, yeah. Now the Mirror is built on top of Unet, but
Yeah,
that's
but
different.
I'm sorry, but they're deprecating QNet, right? Because they have their
Yeah,
new multiplayer system like coming along.
yeah, but that's the thing. As far as I'm aware, that's for dots only. So, but that's not. I'm not promising
Hmm.
anything there. It
Okay.
might work otherwise. Well, they're definitely making a dots multiplayer thing because they've even showed it off on the FPS
Yeah,
sample.
yeah, as well as
I don't know
yeah,
if
yeah,
that's. I'm not sure if that's the same thing they're using for like non-dot stuff. Um, and it's the same with UI. So they're making the new UI framework, which apparently works in dots and non-dots. It's actually, I think you can go do it in the 2020 beta, like 2020.1 beta. Um,
yeah.
you know the new UI thing where it's more like YAML or XAML, whatever people call it. Um,
Nope.
okay, it looks like you're designing a website. Let's put it that way. You've got like
Okay.
tags for the different things, and then yeah, it's like that. And the reason they're doing that is because it allows you to so you can design the UI in code and like visually on the screen. So you can like
Mm-hmm.
drag and drop a
Mm-hmm.
button onto the screen, design it, and then when you realize, now I need to tweak like a tiny little bit, you can actually go into the code. There's maybe extra stuff you can do in the code that you can't in the visual thing. It's the same in shader graph, I think, right? Like
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
certain things you can't do in shader graph
yeah,
that you
yeah,
have to
yeah.
write
You have
code.
to
Yeah,
go and code. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's not
Exactly.
really like a big deal, and that's the kind of stuff that they're obviously working on over time. I guess their main focus is what does like the average person want? What the features that everyone's going to use? Then there's the more like niche features that aren't used as often that they still need to get done for it to be like usable, right? Because if you're going to use
Yeah,
shader
yeah,
graph, you should be able to use it for everything. I guess my problem with shaders, as someone who doesn't do shaders, is like if I see a shader and I look into the code or the shader graph, I understand it. I'm like, yeah, that all makes sense. That's how you get to that effect. But I can't start off with an idea of an effect and just make it in shader graph. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like
Just a
I
lot of
understand it when I see it.
iterations. Just a lot of iterations.
Yeah,
Like with everything else, like with code, you know. Yeah, because
yeah,
I believe right now, for like general purpose, like you said, like for the average Joe, shader graph can get you like 90% there. Like almost everything you need to do is already there. So I'm really liking shader graph for that. So I haven't had to touch any shader code since I started using shader graph. Not that I like can code shaders, but yeah.
yeah. I actually looked a bit into the shader code stuff, but the main thing that confused me again was like versioning and like different types of shaders. Like
Oh yeah.
I did a lot, well, not a lot. I researched like theory behind shaders and whole vertex fragment, all the terminologies. So I have a basic understanding, but if anyone ever expects me to do shader stuff, then don't. um, yeah, when it first came out, I figured out like some cool little effects, but I don't know how you'd actually use them in games. And one cool thing I see a lot is like shaders that interact with your game world. So you have to like manually, you have to have scripts, C sharp
Scripts
scripts
talking
that
to
like
you. Yeah, yeah, talking to
shaders.
shaders. Right.
Yeah, it seems really cool if you get it working. Um, I guess one question about shaders, I don't know if you know the answer, is um, I guess the combination of shaders. So I imagine you might have a weapon in your game, and it's like a fire sword. You know, like maybe the
Mm.
actual. I mean, maybe this will be a particle effect, but let's imagine it's a shader for the sword to like make it look fiery. Then let's also imagine in your game your items have like a yellow outline when you look at them, like to pick them up. That's usually done by shaders, right? I've seen people say, yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you do it so that this fire sword has the yellow outline when you mouse over it?
Okay.
Because
Okay. I get a question. I don't know the answer, but yeah,
yeah,
I've also looked into it. Like yeah, you have to like somehow combine shaders, and I don't know if it could be done with shader graph. So yeah, don't know the answer to that
yeah,
question.
because it's
If
almost
anyone
like it
sees a
needs.
shader guru, type in the
Yeah.
comments.
Well, this is the kind of thing I actually asked Joyce. People
Yeah,
might know her
yeah,
opinions
yeah,
on,
she's the shader guru.
and her answer, I think, if I remember correctly, was just that big companies use Uber shaders, as in shaders that just do everything. That
Okay,
wasn't really like a satisfactory, whatever word,
satisfying answer.
satisfactory answer.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was like, oh, I was expecting a better solution than just a shader that does everything, because
yeah, yeah,
I feel like if a shader does everything, well, apparently, according to her, it's not that like bad for performance. It doesn't really make a difference if you have a shader that does a lot of things if you're not using those things. Um, like just because it's there, I guess it's like the same as saying, you know, I could have a class that has like 100 functions. If I just never call any of them, it's not really a problem, is it?
yeah,
um,
yeah,
so obviously, don't do that. But the point is, with code, you can use like composition, right? You're like, oh, this thing needs health and damage. With
yeah, yeah,
shaders, you can't just be like,
yeah.
I want to stick two shaders, because I mean, yeah, you can have multiple materials on an object, but even then, it doesn't really work in the same way. Because I want an outline around my entire object, but only fire on the sword, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
actual metal part of the sword.
yeah.
Hmm.
Shaders are also like one of those things people are really like fearful about. Like they say like, oh, I really want to learn shaders, but like I don't know where to start. They believe that it is some this like big hard thing to do, but once it's clicked, especially when you're doing shader graph, you go in, watch a couple of tutorials, and in time, like after you'll make a couple more shaders, something will click to you, and you'll just start seeing it all backwards, because you know like shader logic is a bit backwards. It's not like writing code. You have to go from the end to the beginning. So yeah, and once that thing is clicked, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So if I want to make, for example, like a pattern, some pattern here, I just plug this, and it works. But yeah, when you don't know anything about shaders, it can seem super daunting, just like game dev itself. But when you start, it's like, oh, why? It's easy. Yeah.
So a question I have is, these are my questions, right? I mean, people in my
Yeah.
chat should also ask questions if they want. I've had a lot of people saying hello. The only question I've had is, what is the poster in my background? Oh, someone's saying just add an extra material with the outline shader to the mesh renderer and remove it when you want to remove the outline. That sounds interesting.
Okay.
Because you can,
so you can just stack them.
Mesh renderer, yeah, you have multiple materials.
It's
so you effectively you add a material. I'm actually going to try that. Maybe not today, but
but how do they stack? Yeah, that's interesting. So
because
I also wanted, okay.
No, I'm just trying to think out loud. Yeah, I'll mess around with that. Maybe you should too. I don't know. Try and make some.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's something I also was thinking about. Like, how do you make like this interesting shader, but also like you said, and with an outline, or for example, or some like opacity or something. Yeah.
Well, I'm imagining if an item is interactable in your game, you would have like the interactable component, and then that would store the material and reference to a mesh renderer. So then whenever it's hovered, you call a method on it like, I know it'll have an interact method for whatever happens when it interacts, but it would also have a method for like on hover, on end hover, I guess. And on hover, it would say, go to the mesh renderer and add this material to it. On end hover, go to the mesh renderer, remove this material.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's like how it would work in C#. Not sure how you'd make the shader for that. Obviously, I'm not a shader person, but hey, I'd like to try it out.
Yeah. Now I see the reasoning behind the Uber shaders. Yeah, it might be just easier to switch a boolean inside the shader from code and to add that,
Yeah. See, as someone who tries to like focus on like code design and separating everything out, that's why I'm not satisfied with that. But if that's how it is, then that's how it is. I had another question. Or do you want to ask a question? I've been asking many questions.
Let me just check the chat. What people are saying.
I'll hold my question a little bit longer.
Yeah. So, I want to talk. I don't know if you're like continuing the shader thing, or we can do some other topics. Because I want to talk about I don't know, about motivation, I guess, because you put out a lot of videos about motivation. Or lack of thereof, because you put out a lot of videos, and it's for me, it's amazing to see a person do it so frequently and consistently. Like, maybe do you have any tips? Do you have any routine? How do you start your day?
One tip is that 5 a week's too many. That's why doing a live stream helps, because I don't have to think of 5 videos a week, just 4 videos a week now. It's quite helpful because obviously for the stream, as long as I've got something to talk about, it's great. The thing with videos is you can't really recycle video ideas unless it's from like many years ago and they're really outdated. If I did a video last week and then I run out of ideas, I can't just redo that video this week. People be like, "What? I've already seen that one. Goodbye." I guess the motivation is that I know there's just so many things to cover, and I might get to the point where I've covered like most of the things I'm comfortable with, and that'll kind of encourage me to learn more stuff. I'm happy to do shader tutorials when I learn it, but right now I'm too busy doing all the other stuff to learn shaders. But I know, like, in my own game, if I get to that point where I'm like, I want this cool effect and I know I have to use a shader for it, so I'll try and do it myself, and if I can't, then I'll get in contact with people like Roman or Joyce, like, help me please, and then I just go ask on online forums, people help me make this because it's not my area, and I'm happy to help people the other way around, right? If people got questions about like code architecture and like how would you go about making this system, doesn't mean it's the only way to do it, but I'm guessing it's the same with shaders, right? There's not one way to solve the problem.
Exactly.
You ask about I think one problem right now, just in general with the quarantine, even though I basically stay at home anyway, is like sleep patterns. For some reason, this doesn't affect my videos. Like, I'm the kind of person that I can have no sleep, but the second I wake up, I'm fully awake. Like, I don't have that phase in the morning of like just moping around like, get me a coffee, I don't drink coffee, so
I don't have that. It comes with age,
I mean, that was one of the things at the event, because I'm like the youngest person there. Everyone was saying you're so energetic, and I'm like, and they're like, don't worry, like not don't worry, but like it'll run out eventually. You'll run out of energy at some point. But for now,
the guys are asking, who's the shader girl you're talking about? That's Joyce Minion's art. I'll just type it out. Yeah, check out her Twitter and Patreon. She does amazing stuff and tutorials.
She streams every Wednesday afternoon, I think, as well on Twitch.
Oh.
She has a YouTube channel, but doesn't upload to it much.
Yeah.
Yeah, her Twitter's definitely the place to look out, or Patreon, yeah. What's this? Someone saying...
but about about that output of yours, have you had any weeks or maybe month when you haven't put out anything, like because you just didn't have like energy or again motivation?
Well,
burnout maybe.
I used to not actually have like a schedule. I just do a video when I had an idea, you know? Had an idea, did a video, put it out. The thing is, my old videos were a lot less planned. Like I would just come up with an idea and just turn on the recording, and then the actual like raw footage would be up to an hour, maybe longer, for like a 20-minute video, because most of the time would be me messing around, like having problems. Now, my kind of how I do a coding video is I just think of what I want to do. I go into my like project, make the example, and then I'm like, okay, this all works, cool. Then I save it on GitHub, and then I like revert so that my project is back how it was before I made those changes. Then I open up GitHub so I can see the changes I made, so I know what I have to like recode, I guess, and talk about. So I guess that helps for like, you know, I don't spend too long recording because I have planned it out well enough. Obviously, I spend time planning, so the time is always going to be somewhere. But yeah,
of course.
The motivation, and with burnout, I don't know. I'm just I don't have that problem
steady. Yeah.
No, I do have a problem sometimes with thinking of video ideas, but that doesn't mean I don't have video ideas. It's like I think of a certain idea I want to do, but I just don't want to do it right now, or like I realized that video idea, I want to do it right, so I purposely don't want to do it right now. I want to give it more time. If it's like a bigger idea, if it's just something simple like yesterday, you know, teaching about inheritance, you know, I don't have to prepare that because it's such a common thing that I already know about. I'd still prepared so I had like a good example, and you know, I made sure I delivered it correctly. But yeah, like regardless of, I can sometimes just wake up, think of my video idea, make the video, get it out. If it's something simple like that, if it's just a core thing about C#. The harder videos are where it's like, you know, maybe progress on my thing or talking about...
you have to do research,
Yeah, if it's something that requires research, but a lot of the time, at least for coding, so for yours, right, I remember your like road shader thing. I mean, did you already have you already used that road shader somewhere else, or did you think I'm gonna make a road shader, like, or did people ask?
No, it was made I made it for my breach level. I had a video where where I was making a level for my golf game in Blender. After I imported into Unity, I thought about, hey, let me make this road not like just geometry with colors, but like the proper shader. So I made the shader and I put it up on Twitter, and it kind of blew up, and I'm like, hey, people are really interested in seeing how it is made. So yeah, I had the original shader, and then I went and recorded a bunch of footage how I make it from beginning to the end, and then recorded over it my voice. So
but that's the thing.
Yeah.
So there's certain creators like, well, you're one of them, where your content's more visually focused, in the sense that people look at your channel and they think, oh, look at all this cool stuff, I want to know how to make it. Whereas with my channel, I mean, I'm not a visual person. I mean, I am, but not in terms of I can't make good visuals. Sometimes I do by luck, like, you know, I tweaked the right settings and now that looks cool. But most of the time, I focus more on the informative, just it's a programming tutorial. People know that when they come here. You know, this is just...
Thank God for people like you, because I come from a graphic design background, so I'm not a programmer. So before Unity, I only coded in Flash using like their action script, the thing is, and even now in Unity, when I'm like 2-3 years coding in Unity, but only now have I started using delegates and generics and all that stuff. Like, you know, before that, all my code was like if-else statements, you know, 99%. So yeah, well, it's really nice to see like more deeper in-depth C# thing, especially in the context of Unity, and that's why I love your videos. I love Code Monkey's videos. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so we teach C# things, right? Like interfaces, abstraction, inheritance to the problem is then people think like, okay, I've learned this new thing, I should use it everywhere. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Different things have different uses. And even then, from project to project, you might do it differently. If I make a inventory in one game, it's going to be completely different to an inventory in another game. So it's very hard to do a tutorial on how to make an inventory. I've done it in the past and loads of people have. But the more I think about it, it's a bad idea because people then try and use your inventory in their game and realize this isn't... Oh, there's police now. People think like this isn't what I want, or it just... I then get questions like, "Oh, cool. How do I do this in my game?" And it's like, "I'd love to help, but then I need more information. I need to know your project. I need to dedicate my time to like seeing what you need. You know, that's why now my content, at least for the time being, is more. I'm not trying to teach people and sell a lie. Like this is how you make an inventory. It's more. This is what inheritance is, and these are some uses of it. Like
Yeah,
I don't want to.
One way in 1,000 how to make. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and there's certain things that I've learned in the past, and I've used it in like what I consider the wrong places. It still worked, but it's just caused me more pain than So for example, I saw one thing. My question earlier that I was going to ask. You posted something on Twitter, or you liked something, or retweet. I don't know, and it was some guy who had a door, and it had like 10 interfaces on it or something.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that and I was crying because I'm like, okay, the problem. So interfaces are great in certain places. Problem is, I would never in my game pretty much make a door script because I consider that too specific. The thing is, what is a door? Well, you've defined a door by all these interfaces. It's interactable, it's this, it's that, it's the other. So rather than making an interface for something that's interactable and then having all the different like interactable objects, why not just have an interactable component? It's just called interactable maybe. And all it does is it has the function for interact, and then maybe it raises a Unity event on interact. So now you're at the point where you can interact with this object. You don't have to write custom scripts for the logic for a door, for a whatever else you can interact with. You just like have the Unity event now ready to go. You can plug in whatever logic you want from that. And I understand Unity events.
Inheritance versus composition, right?
Exactly, yeah. But that's the thing. Yeah. People think interfaces is composition, and a lot of the time, it is. But it's like one step closer towards what you should be doing, in my opinion. Now, I'm always going to say my opinion because people will say Unity events are bad for performance. Honestly, I've never checked the difference between normal C# events, Unity events, and this alt event thing I've started using, which are really useful. I assume usually the more something does, the heavier it is, the more performant hitting it is. But if it's an event that's only raised, for example, on interact with a door, how often do you interact with a door in your game? It's so infrequent that I don't care that like I can save so much code. This door script, right? All that logic for all these interfaces. Problem is, you might have another interactable object in your game that uses pretty much all the same interfaces and has pretty much the same logic, maybe one line's different. I'd say that's you're just now rewriting loads of code when you have problems. When you have problems interacting with an object, you now don't know, is the problem with the interaction system or is it with the object? At least with this approach with just one interactable script sitting on anything that's interactable and then raising a Unity event to say like what to do when you interact with this thing. Because then it allows you to, in Unity, now just make a new game object. It's interactable. Let's chuck on the interactable script. And now I can do whatever I want. You know, I've got a Unity event just to trigger something. It's so much faster for the design. And the only downside I ever see people say is performance, but I've never seen anyone do a performance comparison. I'm going to do one. I'm going to do one this week, probably, like one Thursday.
I've tried, if we're still talking about Unity events and C# events, when I was working on the explosion itself in the Bomber game, I've tried using Unity events, and then I went to do C# events, and they were faster. Yeah, so there is so the thing is, like, what we're using the event for, because your bomb game looks like demanding for performance, definitely, because it's lots of things happening. I've done. In fact, I've done a bunch of things to optimize that. So how is that explosion is made. It's made of out of like these little fireballs, you know, and each fireball can move through geometry. It has shader, and it has some logic, like it has to die out in some time. So one thing that really helped me was not using update methods on each of the fireballs, but just putting them all into like one like manager with a list, and that list has one update and just goes through the list with a for loop and updates all those fireballs. So that was like 10 times faster than before. I don't know why, but if you just leave like if you have like 1,000 objects and they all have scripts with an empty update method, it takes out of performance.
It's because when you compile, Unity is smart enough to know that if you don't use one of the callbacks, same with start on enable and disable, if you don't use it, it just doesn't call it. It's weird. So when you have
but if it's just empty, it still uses it.
That's just because it's like, well, it's defined, so I'm going to call it. And obviously the problem, the slowness isn't because it's got any logic in the update to call. It's more of the fact that it's got a call update on all these different objects. It's got to jump around memory to all these thousands of different explosion things and do whatever it needs to do on them all. At least if you've got a list of them, okay, so the list solution requires more memory because you're storing a list of hundreds of different things, but a little bit more memory at the to save that much performance is definitely worth it. Now that's where you use ECS if it is maybe more like developed and more comfortable with it, right? Because with ECS you would just have a system looping over all these things, and it would just do
really
it for
try
you.
That.
Like,
I
don't
really
just scrap your project and start in ECS. Make a prototype in ECS as a separate project. Because I don't know how you would, for example, from ECS then interact with your shader, for example.
And plus, like, you have to do all the physics on the new physics, like dots physics. I don't know how it's called. Like, you have to move everything.
It's just called Unity physics. Well, that's the thing. There's equivalents. If you don't want a rigid body, you stick on the new physics body, it's called, or something. It's not that hard to like grasp.
Oh, and it just works. Okay.
And that's the thing. You know, at the event they showed us the component authoring. So like, you have the convert to entity component. You put it on something, and when it spawns, it gets converted to an entity.
Remember something.
With that, what you'd want instead of convert and destroy. So what convert and destroy is, quite simply, it destroys the object and makes an ECS representation. But that's if you want that object to be like pure ECS. But because you need like to interact with your shader, maybe you'd want the other option, which is like convert and inject. And what the inject thing does is it makes an ECS representation of the object, but it doesn't destroy the game object version. So you can have still a little bit of logic on there for what you need. Now, eventually, everything should be pure ECS and it'll work. I remember them saying the example they used was they need a camera in their game to follow the player. Do you remember? Was it his name's Ciro? Ciro. You know, the
Chiro,
who showed us the little example. It was like a mobile. It kind of looked like a mobile game. The character moved around and killed some people, some archers. I can't remember. He had it so the camera follows the player. But in ECS, there is no player. I mean, you can have a player tag, but the cameras in Unity are not currently in ECS. Cameras are still normal mono behavior component stuff. So it can only follow like a game object. So he needed to have an ECS representation of his player with some of the logic still kept back in the game object world. It was the same with the animator, because the version he was using wasn't using the new animation thing they're developing. So he still needed to use the mono behavior animator component. So his player was like half ECS, half not. So maybe you could actually find some like help there, where your game is still pretty much all game objects and components, but the bomb explosion bit specifically, the high performance, is ECS.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Another thing that really helped boost performance, of course, shaders. When I was updating transform positions and everything on the update loop, yeah, it was like killing my performance. But when you move that all to shaders, so the object itself is not moving, but it's like shader representation. Like, yeah, so it's all done in shader. Yeah, it boosts performance like tenfold.
Yeah.
I also have a question for you here in my live chat. Tulan asks, a little question for Dino. If I want to make a multiplayer game, so do I need to finish a game, the single player one, and then add multiplayer, or do it from the start? So,
I've got two answers to this. So if you're on about developing a multiplayer game, like you want to make a multiplayer game, depending on what it is, if it can be made in single player, I would say make it in single player first to create all the mechanics of your game. Because when you make mechanics in multiplayer, it's kind of different. I've noticed that, for example, single player games are easier because you don't worry about multiplayer stuff. Whenever you make something in multiplayer, you've got to think, all right, what goes wrong? What happens if someone disconnects? What happens if someone cheats? What happens, if there's lag? You've got to worry about all these things. On a single player game, you don't worry because if you lag, you're the one lagging. You don't have to worry about how does this affect everyone else on the server. All this. Yeah. I guess my answer is probably make it in single player first. But one thing I want to know that I actually don't know is there's lots of games that have single player and multiplayer, and I can't imagine them having two code bases for both types. Because, so let's say I have a mono behavior in my multiplayer game. It's actually inheriting from network behavior instead, which is mirrors networked mono behavior, basically. So it's a class they inherit from mono behavior that has some network stuff. Then you inherit from that. So where you would normally use mono, you use that. And I'm thinking, well, that object only even works. It gives you errors if you use it when you're connected to a server. So I'm now thinking, well, what if I want to reuse that logic in a single player environment? I can't, maybe, or I have to recode it, or maybe that is a case of interfaces. Maybe for every mono behavior for a certain thing, you have the online and offline version. I honestly don't know. Because the game I'm making doesn't have a single player mode, it's just multiplayer. So I'm not thinking about that. So I don't have a good answer, I guess. Just maybe even if you're making it in Mirror, go to their Discord server and ask them what they recommend for games that have single and multiplayer. Because it's interesting. I'm thinking Minecraft, for example, right? You play single player, you're just running it on your machine. You're not hosting a server and it's nothing like that. It's completely local. Whereas, you don't need internet connection to do it. Whereas as soon as you make a multiplayer thing, you have to go download a server, run it, connect to the server. But the game's the exact same. And I can't imagine them having two code bases for non-multiplayer, even though everything's the same. I don't know, honestly. I want to know. That is something. I think I saw someone talk about it in the Mirror server yesterday. And I might go back and check actually at some point, what they were talking about, because I'm sure someone's helped them out and pointed them in the right direction.
But I also think if you're planning on doing multiplayer, you better think about it from the very beginning. If you are going to completely finish the game single player and then try to add multiplayer to it, it'll be just twice more work, I guess.
That is true, yeah. If you know from the start that you want it to be multiplayer, then definitely start making it multiplayer, because everything's different. If you're thinking even the menus, just the main menus, normally when you press play, just load the first scene. When you're in a multiplayer game, all right, connect to the server, then have maybe a lobby and a start game thing. You might have to ready up. Maybe you have to go in queue and be matched against other players. It's completely different, and that's another thing about Unity events. So if you have the logic that's going to stay the same no matter what, that's the thing. How I think of Unity events and when to use them and when not to use them. If your logic for something is the same all the time, then code it, because it's the same all the time. You change it, you change it. If it's something that's completely dynamic and you want full control over, I want to tweak this, or I want to quickly add that, or I'm imagining in your game you might have consumables. So a thing a lot of people would do is they make a consumable class, maybe inherits from item, right? And on consume, it would do something. I don't see a good way of coding that, because what if you have a health potion, a speed potion, this, that, the other? Maybe potions can do literally anything in your game, right? That's the thing. You don't want to limit yourself. once you're coding. You don't want to be tied down by your own code. You want to be like, I've written good code that I can make whatever I want in my game. I want to just decide today, I'm going to make a potion that speeds up the player.
Yeah.
I should be able to just create a new game object or description for your potion, and then just like build it up by dragging things on, plugging things in, designing it, and you're done. You don't want to think, all right, now I have to make the health potion class or the speed potion class.
Yeah.
Because then I can come along and be like, hey, like imagine I'm like your boss and you're coding it, right? And then I'm like, all right, I want a potion that heals the player and increases their speed. You're like, wait, what? It's like, I've got a health potion, I've got a speed potion. How do I make a potion that does both? Now they have to redesign it and be like, I need a list of effects. So now it does heal and speed. There's the 2 effects. And it's like, well, what about if I want this potion to teleport me
next day
somewhere?
he comes like, yeah, let's do it like another way. But then like, yeah, let's back it up. But then like change it again. So yeah.
Exactly. You don't want to have this in, because the problem with inheritance trees is that it's like you've got item, goes down to potion, health potion, down to speed potion. So you got these 2 potions. But what if you want something mixed from both? Well, now you've got to make the health speed potion or the speed health potion. It's like, and then you want to add something else in there, and it's like, no, that's not what you want to do. I've done it, and it's bad. That's why I just want something simple where it's like, all right, I code the logic for healing. Like, so what I've started doing now is I've made mono behaviors, and I've called them like actions, I guess. So I've got like the heal action and the deal damage action. And this mono behavior, I just stick it on something. So, for example, my potion is a game object, and I stick on the heal thing. And all this component does is it's got no state. So obviously by that I mean it doesn't store any data specific to the thing it's doing. Every bit of data it uses is passed in as a parameter. So this component is stateless in the sense that if I call it once and then this game object stays around and I call it again, there's no like lingering data from the last time I used it. It's always ready. It's like functional programming. I'm not going to get into that, but the point is there's no state. It's all about like you define logic and you take stuff in. It's the way of thinking that if you pass the same thing in twice, you get the same thing out twice. Like there's no state in there. So the benefit is on this potion now, all I need is a way for it to know like who is the target, who am I healing. So as long as I can pass in the player's game object reference, then I can just say, all right, go get the health component and heal it. And then if I decide, now I want to actually deal damage to the player, maybe it's a poison potion and you shouldn't have drunk it. Well, then I stick the deal damage one and I drag that in, and then now the potion damages the player. I'm like, all I coded was the logic for dealing damage and healing. And that's the good thing about that. If I ever change, let's imagine at the start of my game, damage is just dealing an integer, like 10 damage. Then later on I decide, you know what, maybe I'm going to add damage types, like poison, fire, water. Well, if you had code for dealing damage all over your project, then you've got to go through all of it and start adding in that like extra parameter. If you do it like this, the only place damage is ever dealt is in the deal damage action. So you can now change how damage is dealt in one place, and it works everywhere. This is what I've started doing. And okay, every time you find something good in programming, there's always a downside. You've always got to think, oh, really? Like with Unity events, the performance, I'm still going to check how bad that is. But that's the thing. Unless you're doing it in the update loop, it's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Health potion, you might use it every couple of minutes when you need to heal. That's not going to impact performance. Unity events wouldn't exist if they were that bad to the point where you just aren't meant to use them. They have uses. They're uses. Yeah. I mean, I remember in Charles's video, he called them serialized function calls, and that's really what it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the problem with function calls normally is you've got to hard code them, and every time you come up with some custom logic, you've now got to add a new function, a new class to tie it all together. Now you have this huge code base of tying everything in. When you want to make a change to your games, like you want to add some more content, you've got to change your code. The point is you shouldn't have to change code to make new content. You should have to change code to make new mechanics, for example. Yeah. You make your mechanic and then you can use it is the point. You want it to be usable everywhere. Someone's saying, actually, I've not checked the chat for questions. Maybe we should do a bit of that now. I guess I can start because I've got a few. What do I think of the new, what do we think of the new Unity input system? Have I worked with it yet? I use it in all my projects now. I don't know about you.
Yes, and in fact, I watched your tutorial on how to,
which
how to
one?
set it up.
It. Or like the old one where it's got like a picture of some game controllers in the thumbnail, maybe.
I can't remember, but I started using it. I guess like in November, December, maybe something like that.
Okay.
So maybe you
Should
can
have
answer
reached
that
out
question.
to
But
No,
yeah,
that's the thing. You said
no,
you reached. There you go.
yeah. I said I tried reaching out to you, but I couldn't. But and then we met in real life in a couple of months after
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the email on my YouTube page or Twitter or something was wrong. I didn't know, and because I didn't know, I never fixed it until I think it was Elena told me like, "Hey, I tried contacting you through this," and then I was like, "Oh wait, it's the wrong email or it's the wrong this," and I'm like, sorry, I probably missed lots of people trying to get in touch, and then we got
Yeah.
in touch anyway, so whatever. But yeah,
Yeah,
the
but
Unity
no,
input
yeah,
system thing.
the new input system is amazing. Before that, I haven't ever used the Unity's input system, old one. I used Rewired. Do you know
Oh,
that?
I've heard about that. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
used it, but I've heard
So
about it. I've heard it's good.
yeah. So the new input system is kind of like similar in a way. So yeah, I, for me, I love using when it's all built in, you know. I don't want to rely on a bunch of third-party stuff. So whenever, like before Shader Graph, I used Amplify Shader or whatever there was. Like before the new Unity input system, I used Rewired. And even though maybe Shader Graph is not as feature complete as Amplified Shader, or maybe new input system is not as feature complete as Rewired, still, because it's all already built in into Unity and it's maintained by the same team, like yeah, I'm sticking to that.
Yeah. The only problem I've ever had, which is nothing wrong with the input system, it's just input in general is like, okay, imagine at some point in your game spacebar is jump, but maybe you get in a vehicle and spacebar is now something else, like it's boost, like nitro
Yeah.
boost in a car. How do you like go about like
You changed those like mappings, if I remember correctly, because it was more it was more systematically explained in the Rewired. Yeah, he had like the examples, like for example, you're walking, or you're in the menu, or you're like jumping into a car. Yeah, and like what he proposed doing is like changing like mappings, map types. I can't remember how it was called, and I guess Unity input system also doing that, right?
well, my problem with it is, so with the Unity input system, in your different classes where you use input, you make like a new instance of it. You remember, you make like a new controls or whatever, and then you subscribe to the events. Like so, action. So it's like controls dot player dot moved or something, and that gives you
Yeah.
this like callback context, and then you read a vector2 from it or whatever. The problem is, yeah, you can change the map. You can enable and disable maps, like action maps, but you can't do it like globally. So every single script that has like input has its own instance of it. I feel like there's no built-in way to handle it. You have to make your own solution. Now, the thing I was thinking of is maybe I was thinking about it wrong the entire way. I'm imagining a game. You've got a hotbar. You press a key. It does something. You know, like we'll go again with the health potion example, right? You
Yeah.
press the key, it drinks the health potion. Let's imagine you can't drink the health potion because you're jumping, right? Maybe you've got to be grounded on the floor to use a health potion. Like channeling stuff maybe has to be done on the ground. Well, the thing is, you don't want to like stop or change the map because you're like not on the ground. Because in those games, usually when you can't do something but you try and do it, there might be like a sound effect, right? Like a say like indicating you can't do this right now. There's usually like a sound effect if you try and use an ability and it's on cooldown or something. So at the end of the day, that made me think, well, that means this function is being called by like the input system callback is still calling this function even though it can't be done because I'm airborne. So maybe input should always be accepted everywhere, regardless of like state. But then you have code to check like, can I even do this right now? So I'm still trying to think in a game that's quite complex. How does something know that it can be done? So you have a spell. This spell can only be used when grounded, but let's say you have another spell that can only be used when you're airborne. You know, like maybe you have to be off the ground. Well, that's when I've started thinking like, okay, so different things have different requirements to be done, right? Like spells have different requirements to be cast, and maybe items have different requirements to be used, and whatever it might be, right? So maybe maybe you make a requirement class. Now, this is where an interface would be useful, or maybe a base class. Regardless, it's the same thing. And a requirement just has a bool to say whether it's met or not, right? Is this requirement met? And then you would have loads of different like things using this interface, like different kinds of conditions. So you'd have the level condition, and the level condition would be like, go get the player's level, and is it like high enough, low enough? This component would handle you. I'm just rambling now, obviously. How do I explain what I'm trying to say? Okay, in a game, you don't want to have the code where it's like we said earlier, right? You have the inheritance tree of potion, this potion, that potion.
Yeah.
You don't want like down in the health potion to have some code saying, well, if the players on full health don't heal, because then what if you have a different potion that's also a health potion, but maybe you can use it when you're on full health? You don't want some like bool saying actually this overrides that and I can use it. I find inheritance just becomes a mess basically all the time. It always becomes a mess. Composition is always going to be better. I'm trying to think now. Is there any case where that's not true? Yeah. Where inheritance isn't better? Where composition isn't better? I don't think there is. Anytime someone said, I'm just rambling on about that.
I don't know.
Condition thing.
In smaller things, like for example, I was making like my own like twin system or something like that, and
what system?
You had like twinner system, like
tween,
you can make twins, delays, animations, I don't know. So so you have a base class, you inherit from it, and then because like you can be animating like a vector 3 or you can be animating a float, so you store that all in their own separate classes that inherit from the base class, and you have that base class, a list of those base classes, so then you can like iterate through them. So that's like when I use, for example, inheritance, like in these small tiny cases, but like you said, in most of the other ones, I think composition is like,
it's when like with game logic, when you're the designer, you want to have composition because you want to make a game object and just drag everything on that it does. Yeah, you have more components than you would if you weren't doing composition, but the object will have more components on it, but your project will have less components in general because you won't have like the player health. I used to have something where it's like I had the player health component and the enemy health component, and they both basically do the same logic, like for managing health, except the players had some logic for what happens when the player dies as opposed to what happens when the enemy dies. And I don't know about what's your view on singletons? Do you know about singletons?
I use them, but I keep hearing people say like singletons are bad stuff. Like you, if you're using singletons, your code is wrong. Like, nah.
Have you heard why they're bad? Because I used to use them everywhere, and then I was it really can bite you like back. Because the problem with singletons is even if you're completely sure that this is only ever going to be like one instance of this thing, if there's ever an actual good use for a singleton, it's usually better to be done as a scriptable object, because the thing about singletons is you can't guarantee they'll always be there in the scene. Then you might write some logic like, if I'm trying to access a singleton and it's null, then go to the resources folder and spawn it in. But even then, like that's what like people call a code smell. It's like, this isn't what you should be doing. It just is a bit of a mess. So, I mean, give me an example where you use a singleton, and I'll try and convince you that like there's a better way, if I can. Maybe I can.
No, just for example, like I have like a game manager, script, and I load another scene, like maybe there's another game manager. I don't want to have two game managers.
Yeah, I used to have game managers. The problem with game managers is it's like you've got global state of your game. That's the problem with, what do you use in your game manager? You say for like changing scenes, for example.
Oh yeah, for example, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so like you've completed your level, go to the next scene or the next level.
Yeah.
See, in my opinion, I wouldn't have like a game manager. I would just have a component that handles that logic, right? Everything would be spread out. So let's say, for example, in your game, do you go to the next level by like destroying all the I don't even know what you call them in your thing. Like you get the bomb to a certain place, right? Or you get to a certain place by blowing the path up to get it. It's like that, yeah. So when you touch the door or the teleport or whatever, what happens? Like what happens? Does it call a singleton?
Yeah,
Yeah,
closing
okay.
level, dot new level. Yeah, exactly.
Because all right, so does the singleton store like a list of all the levels you need to go to? Are the levels like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, or like
I just pick. Okay, yeah. Because
because
right now I just like go to the next level, but yeah, ideally it'll be
yeah.
just like yeah.
Well, so the component to go to the next level could be on the thing you have to interact with, like the thing you run into. Because it could,
Yeah.
if the level naming is like level 2, level 3, what that component can do is it can say, okay, what is the scene called that we're in right now? Okay, add one to the end of the thing. Like you can like go to the string and add one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
one
yeah,
way of doing it. But also, you can have an event raised when you complete the level, like from the thing you interact with, right? It raises an event, not a Unity event, because it could. The problem with Unity events in this case is because they're serialized function calls. Any references need to be there at compile time. Like obviously you can't with a Unity event. Well, actually no, sorry, that's technically not true because you can in code subscribe to Unity events. Like you can add a listener and remove listeners to Unity events, but you only use a Unity event if you want to use it as a Unity event. If you just need a C# event, then you use that because
mm-hmm.
it's more lightweighted. Yeah. Um, but I just imagine you have a script in your scene that handles going to the next level when it's done. Because the game manager then maybe does that exist on the menu as well, like at the
Yeah,
start of the
yeah.
game? Because now you've got this thing that is in like every scene all the time, and then obviously, yeah, if the game manager isn't there, then it has problems. Maybe it spawns it in, and that's just like
Yeah.
okay.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but that's also like how the game progresses. You know, you start with something really small, so you like have your like main script that handles everything. Then you figure out like, yo, okay,
yeah,
let's separate logic. One goes there, one goes there, and yeah, as your project grows bigger, you try to like separate the logic from this main
yeah.
script, and maybe yeah, in the end that game manager would be completely empty, you know, because like all the logic will be out of it. Yeah.
I used to do the same thing with this, and that's another thing. So I don't like using don't destroy unload because it means that you have to remember to destroy the thing manually at the right time, otherwise it's not where it's meant to be. Like imagine your game only has score. Let's imagine it's a game with score, and that score is added up from each level to level, right? So like if you get 10 points in the first level and go to the next one, you still got 10 points to start off with.
Yes.
Well, the way I used to do that is I would make something don't destroy unload, so it just persists across all the
Yeah,
levels.
that's
But
what
then
I do. Yeah.
then you have to remember, well, when I go back to the main menu or when I win the game or whatever, to like destroy that game object. So because it's done, we don't want score
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
exist now that we're done. The way I would do it now is kind of similar, but I think it's better. Is maybe with the additive scene stuff. So you would have an additive scene with like certain things for your gameplay in it. So like the score handler, right? So this thing isn't don't destroy and load. It's just in a separate scene. And then what that means is that like when you start your game, you load that scene additively with your like actual gameplay scene. And then when you go to the next scene, obviously you're changing your gameplay scene to the next level, but your score manager and whatever that like exists across the scene. And then you just unload that scene when you're done with. And I guess the benefit is that you don't need to now have like so if you let's say you want to now go and start on level 5, you can like additively how am I trying to explain this? I guess additive scenes is just better than using don't destroy and load. When you call load scene in Unity, you can in enum for like, do I want to
Yeah.
load it additively or this is the problem with talking about coding stuff and not having a project open to like back up what
Yeah.
I'm saying, because I'm like, is this how it is? I think it is. It's been a little while. But yeah, like imagine you're in a game and you want to save your inventory between like one room and the next room. You could do it in many ways, but I feel like the best way if you have like a loading screen is just to save the data to a file, go to the next level and load it from the
Yeah.
file.
Yeah, I
Because
guess
then you don't have
that's
to
yeah.
worry about keeping stuff across scenes. Each scene is still independent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's it's
I guess
I
yeah,
think
I
it's
guess
the
this
better
is
way.
what I'll end up doing. Yeah, exactly.
Like if it's something simple, just like score, then maybe use player prefs. Like use player prefs.
No, I haven't. I used the how that asset called? Save something. The most popular asset for saving.
Whenever I've saved, I usually write my own. So, but I'll
No,
see if there's a
okay.
good.
No,
Yeah.
I'm using assets. Yeah. Sorry. There's guys are getting pissed. We don't focus on the chat. So there are a bunch of questions. So
Okay, let's
yeah,
look at chat.
Mm-hmm. I had objects with names that indicate nebulosity, what they do. You might as well call them doer objects. Yeah, which might as well be functions.
Do I think scriptable object event? Oh, go on. You go. Yours.
Yeah. I'm reading the how was that book called? Oh my god. Clean Code, yes. I'm reading now the Clean Code book, and that's exactly like in the first chapter what the guys he's saying, like about properly naming your methods and variables and fields. That's something we like tend to not think about, but literally when your project grows to a much bigger state, you have to you have to consciously name things like normally, because if you like come back to your project like in 2 months and you see like and you can't understand just by reading your code what this is doing, yeah, you've made something like wrong. You might harden it for yourself by naming things like nebulously.
I feel like I'm actually the opposite here. I'm very picky. Like, so when writing code, I make sure things are like named well, and I'll spend more time just sitting there naming things correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just to make sure. It's a good thing in the long run. You might think I'm wasting some time now, but it is good when you come back later. If you have like an integer somewhere, don't call it x. You know, what is x? You want to call it what it is.
Yeah,
I see a lot of people now. I think unless unless x is the right thing to call it, because maybe it's like a vector, right, and it's the x value. But even then, you know, yeah, naming things is important, and there's not really any downside to it. One thing I get annoyed about is like, oh, maybe I have a function, but it's like the same name as the class, or like, oh, the class is the same as the namespace. You have to make sure you do that correctly.
Yeah,
but
that's different.
apart from that, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your question on your side?
Someone said, do you think scriptable object events are a good idea when you have to handle many different events with different parameters? So, do you know what scriptable object events are? Have you seen Ryan Hippel's talk?
I've used them only once. Like I tried what it is, but I haven't used them, so I don't know all the uses for them. Yeah.
So I used it for a bit and then stopped because I thought they were good, and I still see some use in them, but not worth it. So how the scriptable object events work is you like the scriptable object is the thing that ties everything together. So in code somewhere, you have reference to that scriptable object. So let's say this event has no data being passed through it. It's just like a void event in the sense that there's no data. It's just triggering event. Well, you'd have maybe, let's call it a void event. So in your script where you raise the event, you'd have a serialized field private. You know, you'd drag in the scriptable object called like void event. Or, well, it wouldn't be called void event. It would be called like on something, right? And you'd say on whatever dot invoke. So you raise the event, and then this scriptable object has a list of subscribers, and then on your other game objects where you want to listen for this event, you have a component called like the void event listener, and that on enable, on disable will add and remove itself from that scriptable object's list. So effectively, whenever you raise the event through the scriptable object, it goes over its list of listeners and then triggers them all to do their thing. It works, and I guess the main problem with it is now that like all your event listeners are like, I like having things on game objects to design in the interface, like with Unity events. The problem is when you overdo it, it becomes really hard to see what's going on when you have like 20 components on an object, and there's no like folder system to like group them together. It's just a big list. I often have to like compact them down to be able to see what I've got. I'd say, yeah, you can make good use of scriptable object events based on how simple your game is or how complex, but I'd advise going about it differently than using scriptable object events in the long term, because you'll probably just get overwhelmed with, if you use them too much, like the inspector will be really hard to see. Like, oh, I've got 10 event listeners on this object, and all this being dragged in everywhere, and it's a mess. Yeah. Do you want to?
Okay, yeah,
go
yeah.
for one more?
People say like, yeah, I get annoyed when I make variables too long and it makes them harder to type. Well, you don't have to type them all because like auto completion and everything. But yeah, I sometimes have like super long variables. But like, yeah, they explain what they do.
Give me an example of a variable, because I also used to have like really long variables, and not all the time, but most of the time, you can like just think of a better name.
Yeah. Maybe it's just a matter of like doing it weekly, but sometimes you have like a couple of variables or a couple of methods that are doing like something really similar, and you have to like tell yourself like, no, this does like exactly that, like, and this does the opposite, you know? Like, yeah, there are some edge cases.
Yeah, the thing with like long variable names, it usually indicates that the variable's about is doing too much. If it's no, hello.
I'm like you're a bit. Yeah, now it's
Oh,
okay. Yeah,
there we go.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah, long variable names can usually mean that something's like doing too much, because it most of the time variable names are like 1 or 2 words long. I'm trying to think of examples where they're like even longer than that. Like the longest variable names I commonly use, like referencing the character controller and just calling it character controller. Sometimes I just abbreviate it down to controller. If it's the only kind of controller, that's the thing. Yeah, if it's got a long variable name, but it's the only thing like itself in that class, then I think it's okay to cut down the name, because, like I said, with character controller, if there's no other controllers, just call it controller. It's the only controller, so there's no confusion. As soon as you add something else that also is a controller, then you don't know which is which, so call them obviously different things. I guess naming is just something you pick up over time, and then you don't think about it because you just do it naturally. It's not something you really think about that often. Wait, was that your question or mine we just did? I think we did mine about the scriptable object events. So
yeah.
Have you got another?
People are still arguing about naming things, and my gravity force vector for the entity, but variable name. Yeah.
Is that the variable name? The entire thing you just said?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we also should be like wrapping up by a little, because we were doing it for more than an hour now.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously we started a bit later. At least some.
Yeah, but
I
still,
think just
like,
quickly finish off some final questions. Like we can go for a few more questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. I have a game with multiple levels. How do I transfer all my UI game objects that I have in level 1 scene to level 2 scene? So there's 2 solutions to that, in my opinion. You either have an additive scene or with the UI in that scene, or you, in your different scenes, have a prefab for the UI. So you just drop that prefab in each scene. And then if you ever modify your UI, it's in all your scenes. Those are the 2 options. I usually go for the prefab one because it's easier to set up. But maybe in a big project, it's better to use additive scenes. I've heard people use additive scenes for their UI, like they have it separated. I personally just put it in prefabs. I find that easier, but yeah, because prefabs are really good nowadays. They didn't used to be. Before nested prefabs and everything, prefabs were a pain to work with. But now they're really, really good to work with. You need to make use of prefabs to make your project easier.
I still haven't figured it out, to work with them, with the new ones. So I'm still doing
you should, because they're so useful.
Yeah. Exactly. People were asking about when's the new Unity multiplayer system going to be released. No ETA on that.
Nope. No. I wish they would have told us, but they didn't. And because I think it's to do with dots, then I guess as dots comes out, that'll come out. But that's the thing I'm not worried about. Like, what about everyone who doesn't want to do dots but wants to make multiplayer? Are they going to have to go for third-party stuff still, or because they haven't confirmed a non-dots multiplayer thing coming, but maybe there is. Maybe I've missed that.
But they also released like a year ago. I can't remember this FPS project, which looked like an Avatar movie.
I know.
And that's when they debuted, I guess, that new multiplayer system, and it wasn't dots. Like,
No, but is that actually the thing that they're working on? I thought that I never
I
actually used
thought,
that.
yeah, yeah, I thought that that was like the beginning of their new multiplayer system, and but I haven't heard anything still,
I don't
or
know.
I
I
haven't
never know.
checked. Yeah, so we're gonna check on that.
Um, mm, mm, mm. Just reading through some more.
Yeah,
See, some of the things aren't questions; they're just people talking.
yeah, yeah, of course. He also liked like one person when we were talking about Unity versus Unreal, and it can be said about a lot of things, but yeah, at the end of the day, they're only tools, and like how you use them
Yeah.
is
It's up to you. Yeah.
is up to you.
I don't have a problem. I don't try and convert people from using Unreal Engine to Unity.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't say to them like, "Hey," because the chances are they've used Unity. They're not, anyone who's used Unity has probably used Unreal. Same the other way around. If you've used Unreal, you've probably used Unity. At least had a go of it. So if you realize it's not for you, then that's fine, right? What do you think is the best way to check for grounded? I use 2 ray/sphere casts attached to a character's feet. Well, I personally just use the built-in character method. I've had a method like Boolean. I've had some problems with it, as a lot of people have, where it doesn't sometimes detect that you're grounded. But I found the workaround for that. Basically, with character controllers, you write your own gravity. You don't use a rigid body and a character controller together. You just have a character controller and I mean, do you use character controller to move?
No, I use a physics object. Yeah, like the rigid body. Yeah, yeah.
The reason I use character controller is it's just more control over everything. I use like rigid bodies for other things in the game, like things in the scene that have physics. But for players and enemies and stuff, I think the character controller, it's what I use.
I just started out that way and haven't checked out the character controller. So maybe there are some uses for that one.
Some people get confused and they think that it's like a pre-built character controller, and like if you want to make your own custom movement kind of thing, you have to not use it. But no, it's actually just a collider with some settings, and then it has like a move function, and it's up to you to write your own script which calls that move function. So you can make whatever movement you want. The main thing it does for you is it handles like slopes and collision. If you've ever noticed, if you run into a wall with like a normal so obviously you're using physics, so it's different because the physics engine stops you glitching into the wall. But a lot of people, instead of character movement by transform, like they use transform.translate, the problem is what it does is it pushes you into an object, and then it realizes, wait, because a collision pushes you out. So if you try walking into a wall, you glitch on it, you start like, you might have seen it before, right? Thing with character controller is when you call move, I don't know how it works internally, but the point is it makes sure you don't do that. You like move up to the wall and you don't glitch into it. So it's good for handling annoying little things for you. You have to make your own gravity, but gravity is quite simple in the sense that
of course.
you just store your Y velocity, and while you're not grounded, you increase it downwards. So obviously you fall faster and faster because of acceleration, and it allows you to then decide yourself, do I want terminal velocity to be a thing? If people know about physics, if you do, then code it. If you don't, then don't code it. The thing about rigid bodies is you're kind of fixed on the rigid bodies.
But you can turn off the gravity if you're talking about gravity, and then code your own the checkbox.
I mean, obviously, rigid bodies are useful for certain things, and I've seen plenty of things about use rigid body or character controller. I guess if rigid body is enough for what you need, then sure. But as soon as you need anything more complex, then it might be quite hard to do just with a rigid body. I mean, how do you do grounded detection? Do you do raycasts?
Raycast, yeah.
Yeah. I think so. Like one raycast down from the middle of the player.
Right now, yes.
Because there's a problem. When, you're on a ledge.
No, I'm doing sphere casts, so it'd be a bit larger area, surface area.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that might be how they do it in the character controller. They just have a boolean, so you just check if you're grounded or not, and it works just fine. There are problems with because you have to control gravity yourself. You have to make sure that even when you're on the ground, you're still applying a slight downwards force, because otherwise what happens is your character seems like they're grounded, but they're actually like slightly hovering above the ground, so you're not grounded. And then, for example, you can't jump now because the boolean's saying you're not grounded, and your jump code says only jump if you're grounded. So you need to make sure that when you write your own custom gravity for a character controller, that even when you're on the ground, still add a downwards force. And obviously, you're not going to fall through the floor. In real life, when you're standing up on
Yeah.
the floor,
Yeah,
you still have a
gravity's
force
affecting
pushing
you.
down on
Yeah.
you. Yeah, gravity doesn't stop affecting you because you're standing up on the ground. So it makes sense. It's not like a weird thing to think. Gravity doesn't just stop the second you touch the ground.
Yeah.
All right, I have like one more question. Let's end with this maybe, unless you've got
Okay.
more.
Okay.
Do you guys draw class diagrams before starting a project to get a feel how code should be structured? Do you want to answer that first?
No, but I do turn to drawing when I try to figure out when stuff has to like work properly. When I was doing camera, that's like, and I wanted it to stop clipping through the geometry. I wanted to make camera that's like floating through the scene, and if you're going into tunnel, for example, it doesn't like collide with the tunnel. So yeah, drawing stuff, and I
Have
can
you used
even
Cinemachine?
show like. No, I don't use Cinemachine. I used my own my own solution for that. And drawing in that sense like really helps if you have like some simple diagrams, just like to visualize what you're trying to do. So like drawing vectors, yeah, that I do. But
have you tried
I guess
using Cinemachine?
I've tried, but I couldn't get it working the way I wanted it. Yeah.
Okay. Because the thing I found with Cinemachine at the start, I considered it like one of those assets where it's, you use it, but then when you want something custom, like to tweak, you have to use your own system. But I found that you can pretty much tweak anything you can think of with Cinemachine. Even then, you can still use their virtual camera, which is just like a normal Unity camera with some extra stuff, and you code the movement, right? It doesn't move for you. You can do that. Because there's a pre-built-in collisions thing that handles like if you're gonna hit a collider, like zoom in.
I've tried that, but still I couldn't get like the same.
Okay.
But it's interesting about that virtual camera you're saying. Yeah, I should check that out. If I could like decouple everything else and like make my own.
Because
on top of it.
One of the things I used to not like was thinking about coding camera movement and stuff and getting that all working. Now I just import Cinemachine and it works just fine. And because was it always developed by Unity or did they buy it like off the people who originally made it? I think it's always been Unity internal.
Yeah.
So obviously because it's a built-in package as well, it's better. Like we were saying, I'd rather use Shader Graph than Shader Forge or Amplify or whatever, because it just feels right when you're in an engine using its own thing. The main reason third-party tools exist is to fill in the gaps that aren't there, or to fill in the gaps. But because that Unity's now filling in the gaps, there's kind of less of a use to use those assets. No problem with using them, but yeah. But the thing about class diagrams, that's the thing. The reason you need a class diagram is if like you were doing an inheritance tree, and I try and avoid that. Really, I don't find like I would agree doing that for maybe non-game dev stuff, but that's the thing. Programming like concepts and paradigms, like what you meant to do, is different from in game dev than other areas of development. If you go make a website, you don't make stuff the same way. You don't. So, for example, dependency injection, you can do that in game dev, but most people don't, and it's because even though it's a very common thing in web development to inject your dependencies, in Unity, you drag and drop it. It's the normal way to do things. If your script needs reference to something, you drag it in, or you give it like referencing code somewhere. It's different. The problem with dependency injection is it's almost like a singleton in the sense a singleton is one instance of something and everyone can reference it. Except singletons in Unity, you create a mono behavior that has like a static reference of itself. Like if it's the game manager, you then have a private static game manager. That's at least the way I used to do singletons when I did. Yeah. On a wake, you say like, if the instance is not null, then destroy myself because there's already one. If not, then set it. That doesn't exist in web development. You don't have mono behaviors and wake callbacks, game objects that exist. It's so different. So yeah, just because you've learned some like paradigm and some way of doing code design in some other area doesn't mean it applies to game dev. A lot of them do, like general principles about
that's
separating things out and making it all clean code and all these. Just reading. I think that's it maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I guess we can wrap up. Yeah, people are asking what software are we using for the call. It's Discord. But it's like a
Yeah.
throwaway question. So okay, it was great having you. It was my first stream. It was your second, I guess. Like it's like an
it was my
interviewer
second.
stream. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and just reach out to more people and try and make this a weekly thing with different creators and just see
Yeah.
where it goes.
Yeah.
I think
And
it'd be
maybe
cool.
we
And then
yeah. And maybe we should like figure out a way where we can like show not only talk but show stuff. So a separate window or like overlay it differently. Yeah.
we'll like do proper rehearsals. I mean, I actually tested OBS yesterday, regardless, and it worked. And apparently, a new driver update came, and it's like, yeah. So I had internet problems.
Overnight, yeah.
It's live stream problems. Like, because if I did a video today, no one would notice that my video came out a little bit later because I had to fix problems with recording. But because Streamlabs problems with Streamlabs needed me to be on the most recent version of my graphics driver, and apparently I wasn't, but I was last week, so an update came out in the last week. So yeah, I couldn't go live at the start, and then that was just fun, wasn't it? And you had problems with Discord and getting the audio or something, or whatever it was at the start you had problems with. But that's streams, and people don't care. That's the best thing. No one cares that there were problems with the stream. No one's in my chat saying, "Hey, you're late," because it's a live stream. Yeah. I don't know who I'm going to try and get in contact with for next week, but I guess one thing is every time I talk to someone like Charles, then it's encouraging as well for not just me to go find new people. Like, you could also do this with other people as well. Like, get all the different people doing this,
and I see Couch Ferret in my chat. Hi, Jobboard. Nice to see you. Yeah. And he says, like, if I recall correctly, the FPS demo was kind of dots and some custom things. So yeah. So maybe
there's two.
That's
two FPS demos. That's the thing.
Yeah. So maybe maybe he's saying about the latest one. Yeah. Okay.
The more recent one was dots, and then the new one a while,
like
2 years ago, maybe a year ago. That was non-dots, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to our usual stuff.
We never did an intro, so let's do an outro. Our outro is going to be our intro, I guess. Yeah.
I guess, but I don't know.
Well,
don't know what
it's just a case of telling everyone to check out each other's channels,
Oh yeah,
because we do different content. That's the thing with Charles.
Exactly.
Me and him had similar content, but ours is quite different. I mean, obviously you can talk about your stuff real quickly if you want before we end, and then I'll do the same.
Yeah. I'm currently making my first major title and try to do devlogs about that, but I add in the occasional Unity tutorial on shaders or something. So check out my channel. I do like a lot of more granular progress stuff on my Twitter. Also check that. And that's about my channel. Now to you.
Yeah, so I do daily. Well, I would say it's usually Monday through Friday, but now Thursday. Obviously now on Thursdays. Well, the first two streams I've done, last week's and today's, has been on Thursday. That doesn't mean next week's is going to be Thursday too. Yeah, we'll try and make it Thursday so it's consistent, but it really depends on people's schedules and whether they can make it. But yeah, the plan is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday I do coding videos. At the moment, I'm doing more beginner stuff than usual, but I still have intermediate and advanced. It's less visually interesting stuff and more like, code design, architecting a game, making mechanics, making systems. I want to start doing some more interesting things than just coding tutorials. I did a while ago. I had fun making mechanics from games, like Andre does from Mix and Jam. He does a lot more on the visual side. I'd like to actually do more on the code side, right? I think I made some characters from Overwatch and Apex Legends. It's like making Genji's dash, making Genji's double jump, and wall climb, and these other things. It was quite fun to do. So maybe that's something I can start doing now. Making some characters from video games abilities. People will love to see that, right? Because a lot of people want to know how to remake mechanics from games they play. And from knowing how to do that, they can then come up with their own mechanics and understand how to start.
Yeah, exactly. Those. Build upon that, and make something unique.
Yeah. Like once you know about ray casting and some of the collision stuff, like the built-in Unity things. You can make anything, because at the end of the day, everything you write is...
you don't know, you don't need to know a lot of stuff to start making games, just a few.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are saying, nice stream, guys. Just recently found out the Dapper Dino channel, so this stream was a nice surprise. Yeah, it's a nice surprise for all of us, yeah. So thank you guys also for keeping the chat alive. I know we've like at times were focused on each other and haven't checked out, but thanks, yeah. We will read more and maybe like return to some unanswered questions next time, maybe.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Obviously, this is the second stream. Hopefully, each one will get better and better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe even like adding segments and like not segments like normal talk shows have like, oh, it's time to do this, and then we'll do something fun with the people. Maybe we'll even have a segment where we show off people in the chat like what they've been making and talk about their stuff. You know, bring it up on Twitter and whatever. Well, like during the Unity live stream.
It will be cooler to include. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get people included on the live stream. Maybe even end up having like people calling in. Like we'll add someone to the call and chat with them for 10 minutes, and then we can get the next person. Like, people calling. Yeah,
calling. It's crazy idea, but yeah,
that's things cool. We can do. Or maybe even eventually have multiple creators rather than just two. Like have like 3 or 4 people in a call. I don't know if that would be bad. Or good.
Yeah. No, that could be awesome. Yeah, like a full-on conference call. Yeah. Okay, it was great seeing you, and have a great day, have a great week, and you all, everybody who's joined our stream, hi to your families,
check out Roman's channel.
Yeah, check out Dapper Dino channel. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. See you everyone, bye.